You know how some people can just bounce back from anything? That's Eric, my best friend since high school. The kind of guy who could lose his job on a Friday and have a new business idea by Monday. He's always been like that. Ambitious, driven, charming as hell. The kind of energy that pulls people in. Me? I'm the opposite, more reserved, more calculated, I guess. I work a 9 to 5 at a local marketing firm, and even though it pays the bills, I've been coasting for a while. There's no spark in what I do, no real joy. Maybe it's the breakup, maybe it's just me. The breakup. Yeah. That was 6 months ago. 3 years down the drain and not even a proper goodbye. Just a note on the counter and a blocked number. It left a hole in my chest I haven't quite figured out how to fill. So I keep my head down. Work. Sleep. Repeat. Then Eric called. I remember it clearly. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the middle of scrolling through a spreadsheet I couldn't care less about when my phone buzzed. Hey man, you busy? Kind of, I said, even though I wasn't. What's up? He jumped right into it. So the studio's open. We're actually getting solid foot traffic, like more than we expected. But everything's kind of a mess behind the scenes. Scheduling's a nightmare, socials are dead, and we need someone who actually knows what they're doing. Could already see where this was going. You want me to come work for you? I asked, smirking a little. Just part-time, a few weeks. Help us get things running smooth. You'd be doing me a massive favor. I hesitated. It wasn't that. I didn't want to help. It was more that I didn't trust myself around people lately. I'd built this little bubble and stepping out of it felt risky. But Eric's always had a way of getting me to say yes. I'll do it, I said. Just for a bit. You're the best, seriously. Caleb's gonna be thrilled. Caleb? My business partner. He's the one with the brains and the money. I'm just the pretty face, he laughed. You'll like him, smart guy, knows people, super connected. That was the first time I heard his name. Just a casual mention in a conversation that seemed harmless enough. If only I'd known then that that one phone call was about to flip everything upside down. The studio was sleek, modern, and still smelled faintly of fresh paint and ambition. Sunlight spilled through the front windows onto polished wood floors and a wall lined with mirrors. Eric had done good, better than I expected, honestly. It felt like the kind of place people with money and time came to feel better about themselves. Showed up early on a Monday morning, coffee in hand and nerves bouncing in my stomach. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, just that I was here to help my best friend. Eric greeted me with his usual energy, pulling me into a one-armed hug. Glad you're here, he said. You're gonna save our asses. That's when I heard a voice behind me. So this is the famous Jason. I turned, and there he was, Caleb. He was taller than I expected, with a sculpted jaw, dark hair just slightly tousled, and eyes that locked on mine like they were reading something I hadn't even written yet. He wore a fitted black shirt that did nothing to hide his broad chest, and there was something about the way he stood, relaxed, confident, like the room belonged to him, and he was just letting us share it. Nice to meet you, I said, extending a hand. His grip was firm, warm. We've heard a lot about you. Eric says you're the dependable type. I laughed awkwardly. That's one way to put it. His eyes didn't leave mine, not right away. It was just long enough to make me notice, and question if I was imagining it. Eric didn't seem to notice. He was already talking about the schedule, showing me the front desk system, walking me through their social media disaster. I followed. Took notes, asked questions, did my job, but even then I could feel Caleb watching me. I told myself it was nothing. He was probably just sizing me up, making sure Eric hadn't brought in a complete idiot. It made sense. I was the outsider here. Still, there was something in the way he looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. The rest of the day passed. In a blur of client bookings, passwords, and Instagram logins, Caleb hovered nearby for a while, then disappeared into his office. But over the next few days, it kept happening. Little things. He'd lean over my shoulder to glance at a spreadsheet and let his hand rest on my arm just a second too long. He once complimented my smile out of nowhere when I laughed at something Eric said. He started texting me after hours. At first it was about work. Can you adjust tomorrow's schedule or post this photo of the group class? But then it drifted. You always this organized? What do you do when you're not saving failing Instagram pages? Bet you're a heartbreaker, huh? I tried to keep things professional. I really did. I kept my replies short, non-committal, friendly but distant. Still, I found myself rereading his messages more than I should have, wondering what he meant between the lines. And every time we crossed paths in the studio, his eyes lingered again. Told myself I was overthinking it. Caleb was just naturally charming, the kind of guy who made everyone feel like they were the only one in the room. But that didn't explain the way my stomach twisted every time he looked at me, or the way I found myself looking back, and then there was Eric, always nearby, always trusting. Laughing with Caleb, thanking me for being there. That was the part that made everything harder, because whatever was happening between Caleb and me, if anything was happening at all, felt like a betrayal waiting to happen. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The more I tried to keep things professional, the harder it got. Caleb and I started spending more time together. Eric thought we made a great team. I handled the online branding, while Caleb handled the partnerships and events. That meant brainstorming together, planning launches, shooting promo reels, and, more often than not, texting each other well past business hours. At first, it was purely work. You think we should offer a discount for couples training? That photo you posted today? Solid, great lighting. Then it shifted. Can't sleep. You up? What kind of music do you listen to when you work? You always this thoughtful? Or just for us? I didn't know how to answer half the you. Samir. I'd type something and delete it. Then type something else and delete that too. In the end, I'd usually land on something safe, but it didn't feel safe. It felt like a line was moving, and I wasn't sure who was pushing it, him or me. In person, it was worse. There were moments, tiny, forgettable on the surface, when something unsaid hung in the air, like the way his fingers would graze mine when handing me his phone, or how he'd stand just a little too close when we were looking at a laptop screen together. Once, we were reviewing content for a Valentine's Day campaign. The studio was quiet, clients gone, lights dimmed. He leaned in to watch the screen, and I caught his scent. Clean, warm, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. Your eye for design is better than I expected, he said softly. I'm full of surprises, I replied, trying to ignore the warmth rising up my neck. His eyes lingered on my profile for a beat too long. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. I kept telling myself, he's Eric's partner, he flirts with everyone, it doesn't mean anything. But then came that night. We stayed late at the studio, working on a new promo calendar. Eric had left hours ago, leaving just Caleb and me, sitting on yoga mats in the back room, laptops open, half-empty coffee cups beside us. It was quiet, comfortable. Then he asked, "Are you seeing anyone right now?" The question caught me off guard. I looked up. From my screen, "No, not for a while. You talk like someone who's been burned." I let out a small laugh. "Something like that." He nodded, eyes fixed on me now. "I've been there too, a few times." Something in his voice was softer than usual, less teasing, almost cautious. "Used to think I had a type," he continued. "Turns out connection isn't about that. I've been with women, men. Doesn't matter. It's the person, not the label." I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what he was saying, not really. Was he opening up, testing me, or just talking? So I laughed again, too quickly. "You're a modern philosopher, huh?" He smiled, but didn't let it drop. "I just know what it feels like, to be around someone who gets you. That's rare, and when you find that, it's hard to ignore." My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel heat rising in my face. I looked back at the screen, pretending to check a typo that wasn't there. "Jason," he said, and his voice was quieter now. I didn't look up. Couldn't. Because if I did, I knew I'd see it in his eyes. That thing I was trying so hard not to name. The tension I'd been pretending didn't exist. That pull. And the worst part, I didn't want to stop it. I wanted to know what it would feel like if he touched my face. I wanted to know what it would feel like if he didn't pull away. But I also saw Eric's face in my mind, his excitement when I agreed to help, his trust in me, the way he talked about Caleb like a partner, not just in business, but in dreams. So I stayed silent. And when Caleb finally stood, stretching and sighing, like nothing had happened, I followed his lead, packed up my things, gave a quick "see you tomorrow," and walked out into the cool night air trying to steady my breathing. But as I drove home, my hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they should have, because something was happening and I wasn't sure I could stop it. I started waking up with knots in my stomach. Guilt, mostly, restlessness. I couldn't tell if I was ashamed of what was happening or just afraid of where it was going. Eric had no clue. Every time I walked into the studio, he greeted me with the same easy grin, clapped me on the back, made jokes about how I was the only one who actually understood branding. He trusted me, deeply, openly, like he always had. That was the worst part, because something was growing between me and Caleb, and no matter how many excuses I tried to build around it, I knew it wasn't nothing. It was glances that lingered too long, accidental touches that felt too deliberate, texts that didn't belong in work threads, and the way he'd say my name, slow with a pause at the end like he wanted to see how it landed. But I told myself I was imagining things, until that night. We'd just wrapped a small promotional event. Nothing big, just a community fitness demo for local businesses. Eric had left early to meet some friends, leaving me and Caleb to clean up and lock up. The night air was cool, the studio quiet, dimly lit from the recessed lights above the mirrors. I was stacking brochures, half distracted, when I realized he was standing right behind me, too close. I turned slowly. "Everything okay?" He nodded, his eyes scanning my face. "You did great tonight. That pitch to the yoga center? Nailed it." "Thanks," I said, backing up a step into the mirrored wall. Nowhere to go. He didn't move. "You know," he said, voice low, "loyalty like yours is rare." I swallowed. "I'm just doing my job." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You're doing more than that. You always do." His eyes held mine. I couldn't look away. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached out and let his hand brush down my back. Barely touching, just enough to feel the heat of it. The gesture was subtle, but everything in me lit up, like I'd just been jolted awake. "Caleb," I said quietly. It was meant to be a warning, but it sounded more like a plea. He stepped in closer until I could feel the breath between us. "I've tried to ignore it," he said. "Tried to be respectful. But it's there, Jason. You feel it too." His hand was still at my back, his fingers tracing lightly along the hem of my shirt. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it, and in that moment he leaned in. Not forcefully, just enough. Our faces were inches apart. My eyes flicked to his lips, my breath caught, but I couldn't do it. I turned my head, pulling away like the air had snapped between us. I can't," I said, my voice breaking more than I wanted it to. He didn't try to stop me. He just stood there, still close, still, watching me like he could see all the thoughts I was trying to push down. "You felt it too, didn't you?" he whispered. I didn't answer. Because I didn't have to. I stepped around him and grabbed my bag with shaking hands, not even bothering to zip it up. My throat was tight. My legs felt unsteady. "I'll finish the reports tomorrow," I said, though I barely recognized my own voice. "Good night," and then I left. I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt colder. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing hard, my hands trembling. The street was quiet, and for a long moment I didn't move. I just stared at the pavement, my reflection faint in the glass behind me. I'd almost kissed him. I'd almost betrayed my best friend. And worse, I wanted to. That was the truth I couldn't run from. Something real was happening, no matter how wrong it felt. And every second I spent pretending otherwise only pulled me deeper in. By the time I got home, I felt like I'd run a marathon. My body was tired, My chest was heavy. I collapsed onto the couch without turning on the lights and just sat there in the dark. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just sat with it. The guilt, the longing, the pull I couldn't understand, and Caleb's voice in my head. You felt it too. I disappeared for a couple of days. Didn't show up at the studio. Claimed I had a migraine. Left texts from both Caleb and Eric on read. I didn't even open Caleb's messages. I didn't trust myself to. I needed distance, space to think. But mostly, I just needed to breathe. I spent those days wandering around my apartment, pretending I was busy, watching shows I couldn't follow, eating junk I couldn't taste. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. By the third day, Eric showed up at my door. Okay, he said, holding up a paper bag of takeout. Either you're dead, or you've fallen into a TikTok hole so deep you forgot we exist. I managed a weak laugh and let him in. We sat on the couch with noodles and beer, watching reruns of our favorite old comedy show, the one we used to binge back in college. For a moment it felt like nothing had changed, but something had, and I knew he could feel it too. Halfway through the second episode, he muted the TV and turned to me. You okay? He asked. I hesitated too long. Yeah, just tired. Work. Stuff. He nodded slowly like he didn't fully believe me but wasn't going to push. Caleb said you were acting distant. At the sound of his name, my spine stiffened. I looked down at my drink. Eric leaned back, taking a sip of his beer. Look, I know he's intense. Not always the easiest guy to read. But he's solid. I trust him. We're building something together, you know. Everything I've got is tied into that studio. His voice softened. And I trust you. That's why I asked you to help. My throat tightened. I couldn't meet his eyes. He ever talked to you about his past? Eric asked. I shook my head. He's been through some stuff, he said. I think he's still figuring himself out, but I believe in him. He's a good guy, Jason. I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't know what else to. I wanted to say something, anything. The words were there, clawing at the back of my throat. Eric, I think Caleb crossed a line. Or maybe just something happened. But I didn't say it. Instead, I swallowed my guilt and forced a smile. Yeah, I know. Eric smiled back, relieved. Good. Just making sure we're all on the same page. I lied to my best friend that night, and it felt like it scraped something loose inside me. He left around 10, giving me a tired hug before heading out. I stood by the door for a long time after he left, staring at the floor, still feeling the weight of his hand on my shoulder. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the conversation replaying in my head over and over. The trust in Eric's voice, the hope, the way he talked about Caleb like a partner, like someone he wanted to build a future with, not just in business, but maybe more than that. And then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. I didn't want to look, but I did anyway. It was Caleb. Running from something doesn't make it disappear. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. He wasn't wrong, but that didn't mean I was ready to face it. Not yet. I went back to the studio the next morning. I told myself it was just for work, that I could be professional, civil, that if I kept my head down, if I didn't look at him, everything would blow over eventually. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it, that electricity in the air, sharp and impossible to ignore. Caleb was at the front desk typing something on the computer. His eyes lifted the second I walked in. Hey, he said quietly. I gave a stiff nod and walked past him, heading straight for the back office. I had social media reports to finish. I needed noise, clicking keys, clacking mouse, anything but. Silence. 10 minutes later, I heard the door behind me click shut. I didn't have to look to know who it was. Jason, Caleb said. I stayed facing the screen. I'm working. We need to talk. I turned slowly, arms crossed. No, we don't. He stepped closer. I know you want to do the right thing. I get it. But what if this we is the right thing? I stared at him. What are you talking about? He moved in, voice calm but insistent. You can't tell me you don't feel it. I've seen the way you look at me. It's not one-sided. You're my best friend's business partner, I snapped. This whole thing, whatever it is a mess. You think you're being romantic, but you're just complicating everything. Caleb's jaw tightened. You think I'm manipulating you? I think you're playing a dangerous game, I shot back. And I'm the one who's gonna get burned for it. He stepped in closer. Too close. You're just scared, he said, voice low. Scared to admit that you want this. That maybe for once you actually feel something real and don't know how to handle it. My heart was pounding. I hated how much of what he said felt true. I hated that I was angry, not just at him, but at myself. And then the door opened. We both froze. Eric stood there, a bag of protein shakes in one hand, his smile fading the second he saw us. Caleb standing too close to me, tension thick in them. A beat of silence, then Eric's voice, quiet but sharp. What's going on? Neither of us answered. He stepped in, setting the bag on the desk without breaking eye contact. I asked a question. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt like sandpaper. Caleb looked at me, waiting. Eric's eyes moved. Between us? He saw the guilt on my face before I said a word. He saw it in the space between our bodies, in the way I couldn't look at him. Jason, he said, voice brittle now. Talk to me. My hands were shaking. I looked at Caleb, who didn't flinch, then back at Eric, who looked like he was already bracing for an answer he didn't want. I could lie. Say Caleb was just being weird again. Say we were arguing about a post or a budget issue. It wouldn't even be hard. But something inside me broke. I'm sorry, I said. Eric blinked, once. Sorry for what? I forced myself to say it. Things got complicated. With Caleb. I didn't mean for it to happen. I tried to stop it. His expression changed slowly, like glass cracking, layer by layer. He turned to Caleb. You're serious? Caleb didn't look away. I never planned this, Eric, but it's not nothing. Eric laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. You said you wanted to build something with me, that this business was everything. It still is, Caleb said. But I didn't expect. Eric cut him off. No, you didn't expect to want what's mine. The room felt smaller suddenly. Air squeezed out. Eric turned to me again, eyes wet now. And you were supposed to be my friend. I know, I whispered. I didn't want this to happen, but it did. No one said anything for a long moment. Finally, Eric grabbed the bag and walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded so much louder than it should have. I stood there, heart in my throat, not sure if I'd done the right thing, but the truth was out now, and there was no going back.